If you've watched YouTube Shorts or TikTok in the past few years, there's a decent chance you've come across an individual known as Jin Kid.
You speak of dragons as if I don't have an entire hold of solitude to look after. I don't have time for fairy tales.
Jin Kid is the creator of the massively popular.
When you're a famous artist, you are always being watched by the general public. So if you say or do the wrong thing, it's very possible you could lose everything you've ever worked for. Whether it's getting caught lip syncing or making some very controversial statements, we're going to be looking into some artists who ruined their careers on live TV. Starting off with Milli Vanilli. Milli Vanilli is a duo whose career was built on a lie, and they are probably the best example of this video. The two men, Rob and Fab, met at a dance seminar in Munich back in 1988. They quickly became friends as they shared common musical goals, so they began looking for work as backup dancers. They made a demo album that they released under a small German label, and they sold a few thousand copies. This demo was heard by a record producer named Frank Farian, who decided to invite them out to meet with them. Frank was in the process of creating what he called a star group, and he needed Rob and Fab to do it. But he needed more than just the two guys. The two, excited to sign a record deal and finally get out of poverty, quickly agreed to the multi-album contract he gave them with no understanding of what was inside of that contract. Little did they know that within that contract was something that stipulated that Rob and Fab would not be singing.
At that moment in our lives, we couldn't think better or wiser. We were 22, 23, very naive Germans, French people who never been in the United States, who hardly didn't speak English, who got this offer, you know. And I don't know if I would do it the same way, but probably maybe I would.
When Frank invited them to the studio, he had them sing a song called Girl You Know It's True and said he wasn't impressed by their singing. So the song they were originally singing was completed by studio singers. But since Frank had them sign the contract, he had full control over the two. He came up with the name Milli Vanilli and began his project. Rob said that at that point, they were pressured into going along with it since they had to pay back their record deal. Pretty quickly, the group began touring, lip-syncing to tracks that were already recorded by the studio singers. The main reason Frank recruited them was for their star image, their looks, their dancing, and their style. But the lip syncing was an issue for the two right away. Rob said he would ask Frank, when are we going to be allowed to give some artistic input? And he would say, yeah, but right now we need you to go out and do promotion. Of course you'll get to do it, just work with us. Their first song, Girl You Know It's True, the song he had the two sing when he signed them, was a hit in Germany. Then Frank began working on their debut album, All or Nothing, which was released in 1988. Rob and Fab said they realized at this point that they would never have their voices on a Milli Vanilli song, but they were strung along by Frank with fake promises, along with the pressure of having a record contract dangled over their heads. Their album was released in North America with 5 songs hitting the Billboard Hot 100. 3 of these songs actually made it to #1, and by 1990, the album was 6 times platinum. It even went diamond in Canada. Then at the 32nd Grammy Awards in 1990, they won their first and last Grammy for Best New Artist. Milli Vanilli was on top of the world. They finally had the fame they wanted. But it wasn't the way they wanted it, and they knew it couldn't last. For a while, fans had been skeptical of whether or not Milli Vanilli were actually singing their own songs, because when they did interviews, their English wasn't that great, which had people second guessing whether or not they were the ones singing. But it all came crashing down in July of 1989, when Milli Vanilli was caught in the act at an MTV Arena tour when their vocal track glitched and kept repeating. At that point, the lip-syncing rumors really picked up, and honestly, they easily could have been explained away with them saying they had a background track like many people do, but then other people began coming out and saying that Milli Vanilli was not the real singer. Background singer Charles Shaw wasn't credited in the American release of Milli Vanilli's album, so he claimed that he was one of 3 vocalists, adding fuel to the Milli Vanilli fire. Finally, after the statement from Charles Shaw and the botched performance, on November 14th of 1990, Frank said he fired the group and admitted that they didn't sing on any of their songs. Shortly after this, Milli Vanilli had a press conference where they had their brand new host, which is the first and only time this has ever happened. During the press conference, they explained their side of the story and their experience with Frank, but unfortunately, since they were the face of Milli Vanilli, the public face has been much more than their label and managers. They tried to release an album under the name Rob and Fab in but it completely flopped, performing just as well as their demo album years prior. The two were struggling, thinking that despite the lies, the public would understand them and give them a second chance. But unfortunately, that never happened. On top of that, Rob and Fab were in financial ruin following the Milli Vanilli scandal.
So, you guys are going diamond and so forth. Hundreds of millions of dollars are being made. You guys are doing major tours, you guys are on TV, you guys have these singles. How much are you guys profiting yourselves? By the time the first album is now done and the Grammys won and everything.
I can't give you any precise number, but hear me out. He blocked everything because of the fight we had. So the only way we could make our money was on the road and tour in America.
Because of their issues with Frank and their employer contract, Rob and Fab hardly made any money from Milli Vanilli. All of these terrible circumstances did not do well for their mental health, and Robin particularly began to struggle with drugs and started committing crimes. In a final attempt to get some relevancy back, the two swallowed their pride and tried to work with Frank again, but it was too late. They created an album called Back in Attack and were going to release it in 1998, but it was canceled after Rob's body was found in a hotel in Frankfurt, Germany. He had passed away at the age of 32 because of an overdose. The story of Milli Vanilli is a tragic one, especially because the man who was really to blame, Frank Farian, was able to make off with most of the money and much less of the criticism. In a similar situation to Milli Vanilli, Janet Jackson took most of the heat for an incident that was really out of her control. Janet Jackson is a very successful musician, actress, and of course is Michael Jackson's sister. Between her albums and movies, Jackson has done a lot of work in the industry, which led her to being invited to perform at the Super Bowl. When Super Bowl 38 came around, Janet finally had her shot. Prior to this, Janet had been touring with NSYNC, and Justin Timberlake, who was a member of NSYNC, had attended Jackson's shows as a kid, which led her to being a major influence on him. After the tour, Janet and Justin became good friends and worked together a bunch. So when the Super Bowl halftime show came around, Janet played a few songs, and then Justin Timberlake came out as a surprise guest to duet his song Rock Your Body. When Justin reached the final line, which ironically was "Bet'll Have You Naked" by the end of this song, he pulled off a part of Jackson's costume. When he did this, he exposed her right boob, although she had one of those nipple covers on. At first, people were confused and not sure if the move was on purpose because of the nipple cover and the line on the song, but Janet herself looked pretty shocked. And soon after, it would be decided that the incident was not intended and was a wardrobe malfunction instead. After the show, MTV and CBS apologized for the flash and said they had no clue the duo's performance included partial nudity. MTV's CEO at first said that it was a stunt that Janet had planned and said that they did not intend for the nudity to occur, but the damage had been done. The NFL commissioner and the FCC chairman publicly ridiculed Janet. A representative of Janet tried to explain the malfunction, saying Justin Timberlake was only supposed to pull away the rubber to reveal a red lace bra, but the garment collapsed. CBS forced Jackson to release a public apology in which she explained the context and attempted to rectify the mistake.
My decision to change the Super Bowl performance was actually made after the final rehearsal. MTV, CBS, the NFL had no knowledge of this whatsoever, and unfortunately, the whole thing went wrong in the end. I am really sorry if I offended anyone. That was truly not my intention.
In a later interview, Janet said she felt humiliated that tens of millions of people saw her exposed, but she felt that the outrage was unjustified. What's funny is that some conspiracy theorists thought that this was a way that the media was trying to distract us from the real issue at hand, like the war in Iraq. Regardless, people were overreacting like crazy when this happened. Some media outlets even released edited versions of Jackson's apology to make it seem like the move was intentional. She said, "It's hard to believe that there was a war and famine going on in the world, and yet people made such a big deal about her breast. People said it was done intentionally to sell records. You know what? I have never pulled a stunt. Why would you do that and have your album come out 2 months later? It doesn't make sense." And many industry professionals came out in support of her. Also, they were calling it Nipplegate, just so you guys know. The Rolling Stone said, for the FCC, Nipplegate provided an opportunity to restore order and flex whatever power they had left. Faced with lax broadcast standards for cable TV and satellite radio, as well as the absolute lawlessness of the internet, the FCC becomes hell-bent on preserving common decency in the family-friendly realm of network television. While the aftermath of Nipplegate starts to fade, the FCC will continue to carry its torch for the next half-decade. Bluegate. After the incident, the public reception was pretty bad, and the FCC got 540,000 complaints. The event prompted the FCC to conduct an investigation that was even discussed on the Senate floor. To be fair though, most of the discussion wasn't even about Nipplegate, but instead about basic aspects of the show like the music choice. At one point, a Tennessee banker filed a class action lawsuit against Jackson and Justin Timberlake on behalf of all American citizens who watched the outrageous conduct. Eventually though, the lawsuit was dropped. More stupid lawsuits came up, but like this one, they were all either dropped or denied. One advertiser, America Online, which sponsored the halftime show, demanded a $7.5 million refund. Because of Justin's line right before the incident, the FCC was able to ignore the context of the wardrobe malfunction and said that the accident was purposely done to shock. So the FCC fined Viacom $28,000 for all 20 of the CBS-owned stations, which totaled to around $500,000 and was the largest fine ever given at the time. During all of this, Janet received a ton of the blame and very little support. Viacom CEO blacklisted anything Janet Jackson on all of their networks, and she was barred from attending and uninvited to appear at the Grammys. Eventually, the Grammys allowed her to come back, but her, Justin, and numerous other celebrities were required to apologize and comment on the incident. All of this overshadowed the release of her 8th studio album, but regardless, it pushed through and somehow went platinum, selling over 3 million copies worldwide, and it received a Grammy nomination. So clearly her career wasn't ruined, but she got a ton of backlash. It's insane. And most people nowadays agree that Janet was treated extremely unfairly, especially when Justin was the one who ripped the thing off. Justin Timberlake, who like I said received little to no ridicule, said, "I wish I had supported Janet more. I am not sorry I apologized, but I wish I had been there more for Janet." This incident made Janet Jackson the most searched term, event, and image in internet history, as well as the most famous Super Bowl performance of all time. About a decade later, the former FCC chairman Michael Powell admitted that Jackson was treated unfairly. He said, "I think we've been removed from this long enough for me to tell you that I had to put my best version of outrage on that I could put on. Look, I think it was dumb to happen, and they knew the rules and were flirting with them, and my job is to enforce the rules. But, you know, really, is this what we're gonna do?" He also brought up the issue of Justin Timberlake facing no punishment, saying, "I personally thought that was really unfair. It all turned into being about her. In reality, if you slow the thing down, it's Justin ripping off her breastplate." And just like Janet Jackson, but on a much smaller scale, looking back, a lot of people thought their treatment of Slim Jesus was a bit harsh. To be fair, this was an interview on YouTube, not live TV, but I'm gonna count it, and there's nothing you're gonna do about it. Anyway, in 2015, Slim Jesus and his videos began going viral on WorldStar for his gimmicky personality and the attention he was receiving from labels. He was a scrawny little white rapper who was playing with guns in his music videos, so clearly this got quite a bit of attention. I mean, he looked like he was a kid. It really was pretty funny. However, Slim had a pretty normal childhood and worked pretty normal jobs creating videos, content, and music on the side. As he began making music, he used the drill genre with a lot of its imagery in his lyrics and videos, which, like I said, is what made him go viral. But this also led to a lot of people questioning how credible he was behind what he said in his songs and what he acted out in music videos. Eventually, apart from going viral, people started actually listening to his music, and he began getting more listeners. That had a few mixed reactions. The publicity, though, led to Slim getting more attention through the forms of interviews, which dove deeper into his background. He was really early to the shock trend that he was riding on, which made him something different that no one had quite seen yet. Kind of like Ian before there was an Ian. A lot of people made fun of him, with people in the industry even dissing him on songs and just making fun of him on the internet. People began saying that he was not as hard as he portrayed himself, but people kept hopping on the Slim Jesus bandwagon. Famous artists even began appearing with Slim publicly, although it did not seem that a lot of these interactions were genuine. All this time, Slim was able to keep things together with his collaborations and things like that, up until the famous DJ Vlad interview. During this interview with DJ Vlad, Vlad asked Slim a few questions about his persona, asking specifically what real gang ties he had, or if he had a street life, or any of that stuff. And Slim's response was a big mistake in revealing the truth about his life.
You know, when you listen to your music, there's a lot of street stories. Like, how involved in the music streetwise?
Claim the advantage, now hold
Streetwise,
it.
like, I mean, for the most part on the street shit, like, I got homies that are in that shit, and I know people who are, and people around me. I mean, I haven't, like, I'm not out here touching bodies and shit, I'm fucking smart. But, like, I mean, I know people and I've been, you know, in some situations, but I'm not like out here fucking killing people.
Do you have a criminal record at all?
Nah, I'm straight.
Explained that while he had been in some shaky situations and around some questionable people, he was just mimicking the genre he was a fan of. He denied the idea of having to kill people, and when asked if he ever had a criminal record, he said no. This interview went super viral and now has around 6.5 million views on YouTube. Vlad even said it was the biggest interview he had ever done. Fans' reactions were interesting because a lot of people weren't that mad or surprised, but then on the other end, a lot of people were upset. People were even saying that it seemed like Vlad wasn't happy about what Slim was doing in the interview. After the interview, Slim's music still performed decently, with some songs getting millions of views, but it seemed like his momentum was slowing down. It was almost as if the mystique of, is this scrawny white kid really about what he's saying he's about, wore off, and then people just kind of thought he was a joke. A lot of listeners said it was hard to enjoy after knowing everything he rapped about was a lie. In a follow-up interview with Vlad, Slim took the seemingly humble route of doubling down, saying there was no point in lying and that it would only bring him problems.
But you actually were the first rapper to come out from Jump and say, I don't live any of the stuff that I rap about. You know, right? Now, why did you decide to go that route?
I mean, I figured like, I mean, for one, I just make music. Like, I don't really do this stuff, so obviously there's no point in lying about it. And also, lying about it isn't gonna like bring me negative, you know, nonsense. It's not gonna, you know, bring me positive in my view. So I just didn't see the point in lying about it, really.
Even after all the controversy, record labels were still looking into signing him, but Slim also made the mistake of wanting to stay independent. The gimmick controversy consumed any bit of potential Slim seemed to have left, which led to a quick fall-off. One of the final blows to Slim's career was when on one of his first shows, he got checked by his own DJ who snatched the mic from his hand and said, "Respect your hip-hop." I've covered gimmick rappers like Slim Jesus before and how that usually doesn't last too long, and I think Slim Jesus is a good example of that. Regardless, looking back, I think a lot of people think Slim got too much hate. They've even compared him to Lil Tecca, who openly admitted to lying in his Genius interviews.
Took an airline, took one again, crashed the line, so I hopped in the bands. I don't even drive. I don't even know how to drive. That's dead. I got 2 twin Glocks, turn you to a dancer. I don't have no straps for nobody. I don't got no straps. I got red, I got blue, what you want? The Chanel, Balenciaga, Louis and Vuitton. She know I got the funny Prada when I hit Milan.
Well, I've never been to for nothing. And while Slim Jesus was lying, Sinead O'Connor was telling the truth. He was just a bit ahead of his time. Sinead O'Connor was an Irish singer, songwriter, and also activist, which eventually became problematic for her career. At the time, she protested some hot topics like child abuse, human rights, racism, and women's rights. Throughout her career, she discussed all of these things regularly, and these public displays of protest would all culminate in her SNL controversy. In her 2021 memoir, O'Connor wrote that as a child, her mother regularly beat her and even taught her to steal from the collection plate at Mass and from charity bins. Because of this poor parenting, O'Connor got into a lot of trouble as a kid, at one point even being sent to a Catholic detention center. What she saw there and experienced was a major influence on her activism, specifically with the Catholic Church. O'Connor described punishments at the facility, saying, "If you were bad, they sent you upstairs to sleep in the old folks' home. You're in there in the pitch black, you can smell the shit and puke and everything, and these old women are moaning in their sleep. I have never, and probably will never, experience such panic and terror and agony over anything." All of her experiences and mistreatment and hearing stories of others in her Catholic-dominated nation of Ireland led to her protest on October 3rd of 1992. She was the guest on SNL performing a rendition of Bob Marley's 1976 song War, when she held up a photo of Pope John Paul II and tore it into pieces. She then said, "Fight the real enemy," and threw the pieces on the ground.
Of good over evil.
Release the headstone on my mark.
Fight the real enemy.
Everyone in the building was shocked because this was very controversial at the time, and also because no one had any idea she was going to do that. In the dress rehearsal, she held up a photo of a refugee instead, so when it happened live with the Pope, everyone in the cast froze. Apparently, one of the producers broke out in tears, and the vice president of NBC said he literally jumped out of his chair. Executive producer Lorne Michaels said, "The air went out the studio, and he specifically ordered not to turn on the audience applause cue. Looking back nowadays, it seems like everyone's reaction was a little bit much. I mean, we've seen way crazier stuff over the years, but I guess doing this on SNL in the 90s was a bit different. The photo of the Pope she tore up was actually the photo her mother kept above her bed as a child, and O'Connor said she was waiting for the right time to destroy it. On one hand, Sinead was known for her activism, so it wasn't too out of the norm, but on the other hand, no one was really tearing up pictures of the Pope on live TV. Very quickly, the public backlash began, with 4,500 live viewers complaining, and as a result, O'Connor was banned from NBC for life. The Catholic Church was obviously pretty angry too, and she was criticized by the Anti-Defamation League. Celebrities like Joe Pesci and Madonna joined in mocking O'Connor's performances on episodes later that season.
On the show last week, Sinead O'Connor tore up a picture of the Pope, and I thought that was wrong. So I asked somebody to paste it back together. So we have that picture? There.
Fight the real enemy!
Regardless, Sinead continued to push her message when she appeared on a talk show about a week after this happened. On the show, she doubled down discussing the Catholic Church and how it's responsible for the physical, sexual, and emotional abuse she had suffered as a child. She continued to explain that the Catholic Church had destroyed entire races of people and had been abusing children for a long time. Right after her appearance on the talk show, public opinion was still so bad that she was booed while on stage at the 30th anniversary tribute concert for Bob Dylan at Madison Square Garden. A producer at her label said this controversy led to her losing the love of the fans, which was made much worse because she hadn't had a hit in a while. Despite how controversial this was, she stood strong and maintained her position, saying she never regretted what she did. She actually said she thought it was her greatest career accomplishment. And to be fair, when looking back, she was actually right. Ironically enough, this incident was 9 years before Pope John Paul II, the guy in the photo that she tore up, publicly acknowledged that the abuse of children in the Catholic Church was a real thing. In 2020, after a lot more details came out and opinions had shifted, Time magazine named O'Connor the most influential woman of 1992 because of her protests.
So I understand that at the time I made that gesture, it was an abhorrent idea in America to suggest that a priest could be sexually molesting a child. So I don't have any, bad feelings or anything about it. I completely understand why people found that an abhorrent idea.
One fan said the world was not ready for her. Still one of the most courageous and badass moments in music history. After passing away in 2023, O'Connor was nominated for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which goes to show that after all these years, most people realized that she was right to criticize the Catholic Church. And while Sinead got in trouble for her activism, DaBaby got in trouble for the exact opposite. DaBaby is probably one of the best examples of this in recent years, as he went on stage at Rolling Loud and said some crazy things. DaBaby has been in a multitude of controversies throughout his career, one of the biggest ones being when he shot and killed a man in Walmart. The case was dropped as he claimed self-defense, but he also got a little flack for using the news segment where they covered the shooting in one of his music videos. However, after that, DaBaby began killing it, no pun intended, in 2019 and 2020. He released songs like Suge, Rockstar, Bop, and many more. He was dominating the radio and had multiple hits on his hands. He was doing features with people like Jack Harlow, Pop Smoke, Chance the Rapper, J. Cole, and many more, solidifying himself as one of the hardest rappers out. But then at a live show, his career took a turn for the worse. On the last day of Rolling Loud Miami in 2021, DaBaby for some strange reason decided to start ranting about AIDS and gay dudes.
You didn't show up today with HIV, AIDS, any of them deadly sexually transmitted diseases that'll make you die 2-3 weeks with your cell phone lighting it up. Lady, if your pussy smell like water, put your cell phone lighting it up. Fellas, lights up. Fellas, if you ain't sucking nigga dick in the parking lot, put your cell phone lighting it up. Yeah, keep it fucking real. Some of y'all niggas suspect as a motherfucker, let's be real.
I honestly can't imagine what prompted him to say this, but regardless, it was a big mistake. Many fans said that this wasn't homophobic, but many other people thought that it was very offensive, which led to immediate backlash. He quickly responded on an Instagram story.
Yeah, all my opinion is to show the gay ones and the straight ones, we turn the fuck up. I'm talking about my boy that was at the front of the stage, left over there by where I jumped at. Ask him, he got clips all on his shit. The whole night was recording. We would turn the whole night. My boy had the crop top on, front row. Yeah, out there in that jungle, in that water.
But even after doubling down and talking about how people didn't get it because it was a live show, the backlash continued. Many artists like Dua Lipa, Elton John, Demi Lovato, Questlove, and more spoke out against DaBaby's performance. Then DaBaby tried to apologize on Twitter, but the controversy didn't stop. His song with Dua Lipa was removed from the radio, the clothing brand Boohoo Man ended their collaboration with him, he was dropped by Lollapalooza, he was then dropped by the Governor's Ball, and many more bad things continued to happen. So he finally issued his third and most formal apology on August 2nd, in which he said, "I want to apologize to the LGBTQ+ community for the hurtful and triggering comments I made. Again, I apologize for my misinformed comments about HIV/AIDS, and I know education on this is important. Love to all, God bless." Although after this formal apology, he did a bunch of stuff that made a lot of people think that it was disingenuous. For example, he called some people crybabies in an interview, said he couldn't afford to quit right now if he got canceled, and he deleted his apology. Because of all this, he lost out on a ton of opportunities, and the Rolling Loud performance was definitely one of the biggest blows to DaBaby's career. But he didn't stop there. He had a very public beef with his girlfriend Danny Lay, he fought her brother at a bowling alley, got curved when trying to kiss a fan, and then it happened again a month later. He shot an intruder at his house and punched his own artist Wisdom. It all culminated when in August of 2022, he had to cancel a show in New Orleans because apparently he only sold 500 tickets in a 14,000 capacity venue. It was pretty embarrassing, and it had everyone saying that he fell off. His last real hit was in 2020 with the song Rockstar, and he hasn't had one since then. I also want to point out that this probably didn't help, but a lot of people were saying that he had the same flow on every single song and that every song sounded the same, so that clearly did not help his career. DaBaby is still around doing freestyles and dropping songs these days, but his career is clearly nowhere near what it once was. And right now, fans are wondering if he'll ever be able to bounce back. Similar to the people in this video, there are a bunch of other artists who ruined their careers with one album. So if that sounds interesting, make sure to click the video that's on screen right now. Other than that, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, maybe leave a like, maybe even consider subscribing. But following the multitude of allegations that have come out against Diddy recently, it's left everyone looking at the celebrities he hangs around a little differently. But over the past couple of decades, multiple celebrities have actually spoken out against Diddy for a variety of reasons, some of which seem to pertain to the recent allegations. So today we're going to be looking into every celebrity who tried to warn us about Diddy, starting off with 50 Cent. Real quick, I did want to say thank you guys for all the support on the last video. It did super well, and we hit 300K, so of course I really appreciate it. And with all the attention I got from the whole Diddy situation, I thought it would be cool to donate a portion of the money that I made from the video to a charity that supports. Ever since November of 2023, when Cassie Ventura filed a lawsuit against rapper, businessman, and multimillionaire P. Diddy, a multitude of allegations have come out against him. In the past couple of months, Diddy has been arrested, multiple more lawsuits have come out, and he also has multiple charges against him. And with everything that's come out against Diddy recently, it can get confusing when it comes to the details, making it hard to separate facts from fiction. So today I'm going to break down every single formal allegation that P. Diddy is facing. But first, we gotta understand a little bit more about Puff. Also, I just want to put a little disclaimer right here that obviously I'm going to be talking about some really dark and disgusting and sensitive topics, as I'm sure most of you are probably already aware, but I just wanted to warn you guys because it gets pretty graphic. So with that in mind, let's continue. Most of us know who Diddy is or know of Diddy, but we gotta have a better understanding of who he is to truly understand these allegations. Diddy, aka Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, or Sean Combs, began his career in the 90s working at Uptown Records. A few years into his career, he was fired, so he then created his own label called Bad Boy Records in '93. He signed with the notorious B.I.G., who was obviously a huge signee and made Puff very successful. He signed other artists like Faith Evans and had an in-house production team called The Hitmen, who worked with artists like Usher, TLC, Mariah Carey, Aretha Franklin, and many more. Puff was already very successful, but then he decided to work on his own music. His first single charted for 28 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100, and his first album sold 561,000 copies first week. So Diddy was already wildly successful early on to his career in the music industry. Not only was he a successful artist, but he was also a powerful executive with tons of connections. He also had other business ventures, with one of his most successful ones being his partnership with Ciroc, in which he helped them develop their brand in exchange for 50% of the profits. So if you didn't know much about Diddy, that's pretty much all you need to know. He's a rich, powerful and successful man in the music industry and Hollywood in general. He's won a Guinness World Record for most successful rap producer in 1997. He's won 3 Grammys, and he's also credited for cultivating artists like Biggie, Mary J. Blige, and Usher. I kept it brief for simplicity's sake, obviously, but I really wanted to emphasize his power, his influence, and his wealth. Also, I said earlier he was a multi-millionaire, but they have even estimated his net worth to be $1 billion, so Diddy is very rich. Throughout his career, P. Diddy has also had quite a few controversies. In 1999, he was sued by Nas's manager after Diddy attacked him, for which they settled out of court for $500,000. In 2003, his clothing brand Sean John was accused of violating Honduran labor laws as the factories were based in Honduras. The National Labor Committee said that the employees were forced to work overtime, were paid sweatshop wages, and that the bathrooms were locked. In 2007, Diddy was sued for battery after he punched Gerard Rechnitzer at a nightclub. No idea if I said his name right. And there's even more alleged violent crimes that he's committed throughout his career. For example, Diddy's ex Cassie Ventura, who we will talk more about later, said that Diddy blew up Kid Cudi's car, to which a spokesperson for Kid Cudi said that it was true. On top of that, for years, Diddy has been theorized to be involved in both Pac and Biggie's deaths. Tupac's murder suspect even claimed that Diddy wanted him to kill both Pac and Suge Knight. There's even the time Eminem said, "The day you put out a hit's the day Diddy admits he put out the hit that got Pac killed." On top of that, Diddy even admitted that the death of Biggie helped his own music career. Even as recently as 2017, he was sued for sexual harassment by his chef, and the suit was settled out of court. So for a long time, Diddy has been a very shady guy in the music industry, with tons of conspiracy theories following him throughout his career. And over the years, as he would continue to have these controversies, nothing would compare to what happened recently. In November of 2023, singer Cassie Ventura filed a lawsuit against Diddy that would set off a chain of legal issues for Puff. She said, "After years of silence and darkness, I am finally ready to tell my story and to speak up on behalf of myself and for the benefit of other women who face violence and abuse in their relationships." Cassie met Diddy in 2005 when she was 19 and he was, I believe, 36, and she signed to Diddy's label in 2006. Not only did she sign to the label, but she signed a 10-album deal. She basically signed her life away, and Diddy made her sign this so that he could have more control over her career.
So I wanted to get us all together so we could get this, everybody can hear from me how excited about the project. Cassie to everybody to meet Cassie.
They had an on and off relationship from this time until about 2018. In the lawsuit, Cassie claims that not too long after she met him, Diddy would give her drugs to make her compliant, he would beat her multiple times a year, and he forced her to have sex with male prostitutes while he filmed. He very quickly became very controlling of her, as obviously he was in control of her career, and he would also pay for her car, apartment, clothes, and also had access to her medical records. Apparently, a few years into the relationship, he would coerce her into having sex with male prostitutes while he watched, filmed, and pleasured himself. This stuff is really disgusting and disturbing, but basically Diddy was a cuck. And she said that this went on for years. In the suit, there was also mention of the 2016 incident where he hit Cassie in a hotel footage. Apparently, Diddy even paid the hotel $50,000 for the footage. In 2018, at the end of their relationship, he apparently forced himself into her apartment and R-worded her, after which she finally left him for good. Also included in the suit, apparently Diddy dangled one of Cassie's friends over a 17th floor hotel balcony, and the suit also touches on when Diddy tried to blow up Kid Cudi's car in 2012 because Cudi was briefly talking to Cassie. Like I said, one of Cudi's spokespeople said, "This is all true." One of Diddy's lawyers, Ben Brafman, said, "Mr. Combs vehemently denies these offensive and outrageous allegations. For the past 6 months, Mr. Combs has been subjected to Miss Ventura's persistent demand of $30 million under the threat of writing a damaging book about their relationship, which was unequivocally rejected as blatant blackmail. Despite withdrawing her initial threat, Miss Ventura has now resorted to filing a lawsuit riddled with baseless and outrageous lies, aiming to tarnish Mr. Combs' reputation and seeking a payday." In response, one of Cassie's lawyers said, "Mr. Combs offered Miss Ventura 8 figures to silence her and prevent the filing of this lawsuit." Now, I don't know about you guys, but I think it's pretty disgusting to say that this was just full of blatant lies because Cassie was seeking a payday when there's literally footage of Diddy beating her in the hotel. And that footage actually wasn't even out at the time, which means The dude was just lying. Like I said, though, Cassie was suing Diddy for $30 million, and apparently the day after they filed the lawsuit, it was settled out of court. It was settled for an undisclosed amount, and both parties said they wanted to settle it in a pleasant and friendly way. There was nothing public about how they settled it. We don't know how much money Cassie was paid, if any, or even why in particular they settled. Ben Cesario from the New York Times said, "For Diddy, the settlement quickly shuts down what could have been a risky and potentially embarrassing process of legal discovery, in which reams of evidence are made public and a possible trial." And Cassie also likely didn't want to relive all of her trauma, which is why she probably was willing to settle rather than sit through a trial. But thanks to Cassie's courage for coming forward about this, a multitude of lawsuits followed. Just 5 days after Cassie's lawsuit, another lawsuit was filed accusing Diddy of drugging and essaying a college student at Syracuse University in 1991 and filming it. Then apparently Diddy would show the footage to people as revenge porn. Shortly after that, a third lawsuit was filed accusing Diddy and Aaron Hall of R-wording the accuser and her friend. Apparently, following the assault, Diddy pulled up to the girl's residence and got violent, even choking the girl till she passed out. After this suit came out, Diddy's spokesperson again claimed they were lies, saying these are fabricated claims falsely alleging misconduct from over 30 years ago and filed at the last minute. This is nothing but a money grab. Because of Mr. Combs' fame and success, he is an easy target for anonymous accusers who lie without conscience or consequence for financial benefit. Following this, on December 6, another lawsuit was filed in which they claimed in 2003 a 17-year-old was gang R-worded by Diddy, Harvey Pierre, and an unnamed assailant. The victim says they talked her into getting on a private jet to New York, drugging her, and then assaulted her. In this lawsuit, the girl even provided pictures, making the claims all that more believable. In December, after all of these allegations, Diddy finally made a statement on his Instagram saying, "Enough is enough. For the last couple of weeks, I have sat silently and watched people try to assassinate my character, destroy my reputation, and my legacy. Sickening allegations have been made against me by individuals looking for a quick payday. Let me be absolutely clear. I did not do any of the awful things being alleged. I will fight for my name, my family, and for the truth." But it's safe to say Diddy's statement was not well received, and more awful allegations continued to come out. In February of this year, the producer Lil Rod filed a huge $30 million lawsuit in which he accused Diddy of harassing and threatening him for over more than a year. He also allegedly had footage of Diddy and his people committing crimes and doing SA. Lil Rod was accusing Diddy of what they said was RICO-level charges, and named people such as Diddy, his son Justin, Lucian Grange, the CEO of Universal Music Group, Ethiopia Habtemariam, if that's how you say it, I have no idea, the CEO of Motown Records, Chalice Recording Studios, Diddy's chief of staff Christina Karam, and Diddy's companies as defendants. So basically what he's saying is all these people I just listed and the companies were involved in these crimes alongside Diddy. I do think it's important to note, though, that Lucian Grange and UMG were eventually removed from the lawsuit. Lil Rod lived with Diddy for months at a time and was also on a yacht that he rented for multiple weeks. He said that he witnessed many of Diddy's awful acts. Apparently, Lil Rod was also the victim of constant, unsolicited, and unauthorized groping and touching of his anus by Mr. Combs. When he complained to Diddy's chief of staff, she said, "You know, Sean will be Sean." Rod even said that Diddy was trying to make him have sex with Stevie J and promised him that he would win a Grammy if he did. According to the suit, Rod said he was also sexually assaulted by a cousin or assistant of rapper Young Miami. He was sexually harassed and assaulted by Oscar winner Cuba Gooding Jr. and obtained footage of a rapper and an R&B singer whose names have been redacted from the complaint, consorting with underage girls and sex workers. Finally, Rodney said that the reason no one has come forward with anything over the past few decades is because Diddy has footage of every person that has attended his parties that he can use to blackmail them. So Rodney accused Diddy of a ton of crimes, plenty of which we'll touch on more later. But this lawsuit was huge, especially because he was naming names and said he had evidence for all of this. Diddy's attorney said that the suit includes reckless name dropping about events that are pure fiction. Following this, 2 of Diddy's houses were raided by the feds. They said, earlier today, Homeland Security Investigations New York executed law enforcement actions as part of an ongoing investigation with assistance from HSI Los Angeles, HSI Miami, and our local law enforcement partners. We will provide further information as it becomes available. Both of his sons, Justin and Christian, were also handcuffed during the raids. So clearly, either because of the lawsuits or before them, Diddy was under investigation by the feds. After the raid, CNN obtained the video of Diddy attacking Cassie in the hallway, to which Diddy decided to apologize for, since this was the only evidence so far that had been released to the public.
It's so difficult to reflect on darkest times in your life, sometimes you gotta do that. I was fucked up. I mean, I hit rock bottom. But I make no excuses. My behavior on that video, inexcusable. I take full responsibility for my actions.
Hostile C4 detected.
Disgusted. I'm so sorry. But I'm committed to be a better man each and every day. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Truly sorry.
On May 22nd, a few days after the video came out, a former model accused Diddy of drugging and SAing her in another lawsuit. A couple of days later, another woman came forward accusing Diddy of 4 instances of SA from the mid-1990s to the early 2000s. He was also accused of battery and assault in this suit as well. Most recently, another suit came out where Diddy was accused of drugging and already another woman. According to ABC, this is at least the 12th lawsuit filed against Diddy since Cassie came out with hers back in November of 2023. As of recording this, no more have come out, but it's very possible more people will speak out. The reason all of these people came forward around the same time is because of a new law passed in New York called the Adult Survivors Act. Basically, what this did was give adult victims, people who were 18 years or older during their alleged time of abuse, the ability to file civil lawsuits in New York, even if any statutes of limitations have run out. If you don't know what that means, basically, if you were an adult in New York who got SA'd, before this new act, usually there was about a 3-year window where you could file a suit. As far as I understand it, I am by no means a lawyer, but this is what it said on the rule. So now with the Adult Survivors Act, victims had a 1-year window to file suits, and it's set to expire this November. So it isn't like this is some big coordinated mastermind attack against Diddy. This new act, coupled with Cassie's coming out in her lawsuit, seems to be what motivated these victims to come forward. And just as it seemed like it couldn't get worse for Diddy, the feds showed up at his front door. Most recently, Diddy was arrested by the feds on September 16th of this year, based on a sealed indictment filed by the Southern District of New York. By the way, indictment is basically just fancy talk for serious charges. The U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said,
Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice.
So like the U.S. Attorney implied, there are 3 main charges that Diddy is currently facing: racketeering conspiracy, trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. His first charge is racketeering, which is defined as a set of illegal activities aimed at commercial profit that may be disguised as legitimate business deals. In the indictment, they say that Diddy abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To accomplish this, they claim that he used his employees and his businesses to create a criminal enterprise that indulged in the things that the U.S. Attorney mentioned earlier. So basically what they were saying was all of the businesses that Diddy had created over the years for his music career, his clothing career, and everything else like that, he was using those and his employees to help cover up and do the things he wanted to do. And like we know, many of the things he wanted to do included assaulting women. The attorney even referred to Diddy's business, Combs Enterprise, as a criminal organization because Diddy had many of his employees working to cover up everything he was doing. They said that employees engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion, and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The indictment says that to make women cooperate, Diddy would give them drugs, threaten their careers, and also threaten violence. They said from 2009 and continuing for years, Combs assaulted women by, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at, and kicking them. And this is where we get to one of the more popular parts of the indictment, the freak-offs. The indictment reads, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with male commercial sex workers that Combs referred to as freak-offs. Freak-offs were elaborate and produced performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded. The lawsuit even said that these freak-offs would last multiple days, and Diddy would pump them with drugs to keep them compliant, and then when they needed to recover after the multiple-day freak-offs, he would give the victims IV fluids, which is insane. Of course, they also mentioned that law enforcement seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. Of course, this part went viral. It is kind of funny, but it also goes to show the scale of what Diddy was doing. The feds also found multiple firearms in Diddy's houses that he used to threaten his victims. And to top it all off, they said that he has been doing most of this since at least 2008. That's nearly 20 years of terrible crimes Diddy's been committing. And I know there's like a ton of jokes about this whole situation, but in reality, this is like some disgusting supervillain type of stuff. And who knows how many victims he has total. And then of course, there were the 2 other counts he was charged with: trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Both of these had very similar themes, and all the information was pretty much the same as we discussed earlier. But what I want to point out about the indictment is that if the US government is indicting you, they probably have pretty good evidence. Apparently, federal prosecutors have above a 95% conviction rate, so things really aren't looking too good. They claimed that they had a ton of recordings, and they also seized a bunch of electronic recording devices in the raid that they did earlier this year. At the end of the press conference given by the U.S. attorney, he said this:
Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly.
The government says in the indictment that others were involved in Diddy's actions, and Legal Eagle explained how the government could go after them.
And there is a federal crime called misprision of felony, which is defined in 18 U.S.C. Section 4. Quote, whoever having knowledge of the actual commission of a felony cognizable by a court of the United States conceals and does not as soon as possible make known the same to some judge or other person in civil or military authority under the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. So if a person has knowledge of a felony and conceals it or authority, that person has committed the crime.
So this investigation is far from over. After being arrested, Diddy has been denied bail multiple times, and he has also been placed on suicide watch. He's also in the same cell as Sam Bankman-Fried or Fried or however you say his name, which is pretty interesting. His lawyer has tried to suggest multiple times that he's innocent, which at this point is honestly just ridiculous.
Mr. Combs is a fighter. He's going to fight this to the end. He's innocent. He came to New York to establish his innocence. He's not afraid. He's not afraid of the charges. There's nothing that the government said in their presentation today that changes anyone's mind about anything.
I mean, listen to the reason that the lawyer gave for all of Diddy's baby oil bottles.
How do you explain the baby oil and the lubricants? 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
I don't think it was 1,000. I think it was a lot. I mean, there's a Costco right down the street. You know, I think Americans buy in bulk, as we know. And, you know, this is consensual adults doing what consensual adults do.
They're taking feet.
To summarize, Diddy is currently facing at least 11 lawsuits, settled one of them, and is also facing an indictment, all of which allege themes of violence, SA, racketeering, trafficking, prostitution, and many more. None of these suits contain any information about other celebrities, except for Lil Ronnie's, which has been amended, like I said, to leave out some bigger names. It's possible we will learn about other celebrities or famous people involved in Diddy's freak-offs or other actions in the investigation. But as of now, this is all he's been accused of, legally speaking. So while there are all these rumors floating around about who he did things with or to, these are the things he's actually being accused of by multiple people and the U.S. government. And as Bruce Rivers says,
guess what, Diddy? Years from now, there's a freight train coming, and you are tied to those motherfucking tracks. And your lawyer, he's got a chisel, he's got a blowtorch, and he's got all kinds of other tools in his toolbox. And nothing he can do can remove you from those tracks, because that train is coming, and that train is the U.S. government.
So hopefully, as this investigation continues, not only are they able to lock Diddy up, but they're able to lock up everybody else who's been involved over this long period of time.
I'm on the objective.
Zone A secure.
Priority testing request received. UAV exiting your grid.
Taking C.
Following the multitude of allegations that have come out against Diddy recently, it's left everyone looking at the celebrities he hangs around a little differently. But over the past couple of decades, multiple celebrities have actually spoken out against Diddy for a variety of reasons, some of which seem to pertain to the recent allegations. So today we're going to be looking into every celebrity who tried to warn us about Diddy, starting off with 50 Cent. Real quick, I did want to say thank you guys for all the support on the last video. It did super well and we hit 300K, so of course I really appreciate it. And with all the attention I got from the whole Diddy situation, I thought it would be cool to donate a portion of the money that I made from the video to a charity that supports sexual assault victims called the Sojourner House. It's a local charity in my area and they do a lot of cool things like providing shelter among other things. And if you guys are interested in donating, I recommend Googling a charity near you that does something similar. Or if you don't feel like doing any type of research, you can just check out the one that I donated to. The link is in the description. And again, thank you guys for the support. It's been really great. I really appreciate it. And let's hop back into the video. And I also want to say before we get into the video that a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is just speculation. We don't really know what all these people meant or how much they actually knew when they were talking, and that it's not just a coincidence. But if you're unaware of the actual allegations that Diddy's facing when it comes to lawsuits and the indictment, I made a whole video on that, so feel free to check that out either before or after this one, whichever you please. Yeah, but that's enough yapping, so let's get into the video. 50 Cent has had an on and off beef with Diddy since 2006, and following everything that's happened recently, 50 even said he's making a docu-series on Netflix about Diddy's crimes called Diddy Do It. But in what a lot of people just assume was 50 trolling, 50 has actually said a lot about Diddy in the past couple of decades. Like I said, it started in 2006 when 50 dissed Diddy on the track The Bomb. He said, "Who shot Biggie Smalls? We get him. Kill us all. Man, Puffy knows who hit that guy." There have always been theories that have suggested that Diddy was involved in the deaths of Biggie and or Pac. Biggie in particular was signed to his Bad Boy Records label, so I'm sure Diddy wasn't a fan of this track. But a year later, 50 and Diddy performed together, so it seemed like they might have been cool again. However, over the years, they go back and forth in songs and online. For example, in 2014, they were talking to each other because they both had alcohol brands. One time, Diddy called 50 a hating-ass crap, since 50 also had beef with Rick Ross, and Diddy had just begun managing Rick Ross, which, by the way, it had me thinking about that one line from Rick Ross's song You Don't Even Know, where he said, "Put Molly all in her champagne, she ain't even know it. I took her home and enjoyed that, she ain't even know it." So if Ross was around Diddy and was saying stuff like this in songs, things that Diddy has been accused of recently, who knows what they're up to. By the way, I'm not trying to accuse Rick Ross of anything, but it's just a little bit of a weird coincidence. Anyways, the main thing that 50 has done over the years is alluded to Diddy being gay or suggesting that he was into some stuff like that.
Now, Fifth, when you continuously call Puff gay,
Net cool.
is that about your relationship with Hollywood?
I don't call him gay. I said,
let me read it, Fifth. Sorry, I can no longer help you guys. Soon you will all be gay and happy. You are all now left under leadership of Puffy Daddy. Report to the nearest rainbow. And Peter James.
That's why he says things. He doesn't even know what he's saying is like fruity. No, I'm telling you. He says something fabulous and he goes, no, but me and you, we ain't part. Like, we ain't part. What is he talking about? Incidents going off. When people say that to me, I get a little uncomfortable. I get uncomfortable. Like he said something to me one time, a long time ago, at Chris Lighton's wedding. He told me to take me shopping. I looked at him like, what you just say? Let me move, man, before I do something. You're gonna make me mess up the way.
Oh, that's a nice gesture.
Let me get out. No, that's still what the
And this was the only time that 50 said something like this about Diddy, because he also did it on Drink Champs.
So yo, when we gonna get a chance to kick it, like we can just hang out. You gotta kick it. It's Puff. Okay. You're telling me we gotta kick it, and he's like, yo, why don't we like go shopping or some shit? I mean, like I pay for it. I was like, what the fuck did he just say? This is it goes off. So this is a little fruit. It's a fruit pile. It's a fruit pile. Trust me. You see these little weird ass pictures and shit like that out there? You should sit out there for no reason. You don't see accident pictures gonna be like kissing and shit. Like that doesn't happen by accident. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Look. Later you gonna find out a little bit about saying.
It's crazy. 50 literally said, later you're gonna find out that a lot of the stuff I'm saying is real. Diddy responded to 50's comments on his own Breakfast Club interview. They first played a clip of him saying some stuff that made him seem gay to see what he meant.
I was coming off of being in Miami a night of party. I don't really remember what I was saying. You know what I'm saying?
Would you like a reminder?
Yeah, sure.
Play some.
Hey, yo, listen, yo, I love it all. I love it all, man.
I like when you like this, Daddy. Daddy, I like when you scrambling and scraping.
That was you.
Scrambling.
I like when you do it like that, Daddy. When you're scrambling and scraping for
I don't know what I was talking about.
Nah. I mean,
you don't go back and look at that stuff and laugh?
I mean, it can be funny. I don't really be on it like that.
Now, obviously, there's nothing wrong if Diddy was just gay. But when you keep in mind that he was doing this outwardly straight, comfortable in my sexuality persona, and then behind the scenes was allegedly committing SAs, sometimes with men, it starts to make more sense.
I asked 50 about that. He said you did the same thing to him. You asked him to take him shopping.
Taking C.
Yeah. I thought he needed some clothes.
Eyes on enemy.
What? I'm a nice guy. Hey, yo.
Why y'all not?
Hey, yo, I don't have no beef with
I don't know why.
With Fifth. He loves me.
Then they asked him about some of 50's comments.
Nothing. I don't even think of no other man. Besides, if I'm thinking about another man, I'm thinking about uplifting.
Now, this is one of the few things that someone said about Diddy before the allegations came out that kind of spoke on what he was up to. Because if you didn't know, Diddy has been accused of forcing girls to have sex with male prostitutes while he watched and filmed, alongside trying to make the producer, Lil Rod, have sex with other men. Most recently, 50 has been one of the main celebrities speaking out about the Diddy situation, as he does with pretty much every other situation. He explained that he never went to any of Diddy's parties and always thought it was weird.
So was there a reason you never went to those parties back in the day? Obviously, I know what's going on there, but is there a reason you never did?
I'm just not with all that for like all of the stuff that he's doing. I'm not into that type of stuff. I'm just a little more, maybe you could say basic or normal.
50 also explained in the interview why he is the only person speaking out, suggesting that others who haven't spoken out are doing so because they were involved.
So you have something huge coming up, which is a documentary about P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. Did he do it, right?
Yeah.
I know you've been heavy on social media talking about it.
He did it. And I'm the only one who's been vocal about this long before it actually.
Oh, you've been saying this for a long time now. And then no one was, they're just, why is he saying this? And now it's coming out like crazy.
But I also didn't participate. I also didn't go to the party.
Yeah.
So a lot of the celebrity culture that you don't hear saying anything is because they participated.
Like you heard in that clip, 50 is planning on making a docu-series on Netflix called Did He Do It? And he's talked about it in an interview with Variety. Him and the director, Alexandria Stapleton, said, "This is a story with significant human impact. It is a complex narrative spanning decades, not just headlines or clips seen so far. While the allegations are disturbing, we urge all to remember that Sean Combs' story is not the full story of hip-hop and its culture. We aim to ensure that individual actions do not overshadow the culture's broader contributions." Apparently, they're even going to donate some of the proceeds to support victims of SA, which is super cool. And another person who's made some interesting comments or remarks about Diddy over the years is Aubrey O'Day. Aubrey O'Day is a singer who was in the group Danity Kane, a group that was on MTV's Making the Band, and they signed to Bad Boy Records, which was P. Diddy's label, in 2005. Diddy mentored the band in a similar fashion as he did with Justin Bieber or Usher, except this time it was on reality TV. But when Audrey spoke about her time on the show over the years, it was fairly negative. She said, "We were scared to death with what would happen with Puff every day. There was just no room for error. Diddy was one of the most intense people you could ever work with. I experienced everything from race remarks to sexism, and a lot of it was scary." She also made some comments on the Call Her Daddy podcast about her experience.
I always was like, oh, Diddy is like so obsessed with Aubrey.
I just want you to look good.
If you're not happy, you hate me, then why you have me here?
I don't have to have you here. That's one thing that we can make clear. That's one
I
thing
know
we
her
can
from,
make clear.
I know from Celebrity Apprentice with President Donald Trump.
I wasn't willing to do what was expected of me, not talent-wise, but in other areas.
And when she said not talent-wise with everything we know now, it seems pretty obvious that she was referring to something sexual. She even said, he's on camera saying how much he hates it, but he's off camera telling me all the ways I needed to be groomed properly. So because she didn't want to do whatever it was he wanted her to do, Aubrey was kicked from the group. Eventually she went on the show The Apprentice, and Diddy came up in conversation, to which Trump praised him, and Audrey seemed very uncomfortable.
I am a very strict and focused businesswoman because working for Diddy for 6 years trained me to have to be perfect.
Working for Diddy?
Absolutely.
I love Diddy. You know, he's a good friend of mine. He's a good guy. Is he a good guy?
I don't want to answer that question.
Oh, wow. I think he's a good guy. I'm going to stick up for him.
And keep in mind that pretty much everything I just said was prior to Diddy's allegations. After the allegations began to come out, she spoke up a few times, like in this interview with Adam 22.
And I'm finding out so many times, even very early on, where Diddy was making comments like, oh, now you're like, you look great, I could you now. And things like that. I don't even remember.
One fan even said in the comments, one thing about her is she's always hated Diddy and never bowed down to him. I grew up watching him make the band and always remember her challenging him and standing up to him. She's been telling on Diddy way before anyone else. And another person who made some claims about Diddy was Kanye. But the only issue with Kanye is that during this time he was saying some other crazy stuff that made him sound not so believable. In 2022, when Kanye was going nuts with all the Jewish conspiracy stuff and blasting people on Instagram, he found Diddy in his crosshairs. In October of 2022, Kanye shared some messages with Diddy, where Diddy said, send me an address, let's stop playing these internet games, and don't feel threatened, you'll be fine, just love. To which Kanye said, this ain't a game. I'm gonna use you as an example to show the Jewish people that told you to call me that no one can threaten or influence me. I told you this was war, now go and get you some business. Diddy responded, I'm just trying to talk to you as a black man, and I'm talking to you because this is hurting our people. Stop. Kanye then said, anything you text I will post. I love you and you guys are breaking my heart. I accept your apology in advance. So clearly it's a little bit difficult to take Ye seriously when he's saying some of the stuff he's saying, but looking back, fans have found some of what Kanye said to be applicable to today's situation. That's because Ye later posted a message he sent to Diddy that read, I didn't like our convo, I'm selling these teas, nobody gets in between me and my money. This is my grandfather texting me now. Never call me with no bullshit like that again unless you're ready to green light me. Because anybody who got that tea is me. Out of respect for everything you've meant to me, I'll be quiet as Virgil. But now I know I've hurt people I love with threats. Come do something illegal to me now, please. Diddy responded saying, as soon as I land, we'll meet face to face. Send me an address. To which Ye said, fuck you, you fed. So people believe that Kanye saying he'll be quiet, asking Diddy to do something illegal, and calling him a fed has something to do with Diddy's recent allegations. And while this could be true, it also could be another rank. He also did say something similar on Drink Champs when referring to Diddy and Meek Mill.
As far as Meek Mills, Puff Daddy, whoever, none of these niggas, all you fake hard niggas, fuck you. Hold on. Okay. All you fake hard niggas, fuck you. You know what I'm saying? I don't give a fuck, because you can't shoot nobody anyway, and the reason why you got to talk is because you get a deal, you fucking fed. You know what I'm saying? That's why you got to come at me, because part of the deal for you to be a doing that, and get out of jail is that you promise that you're going to go pull my go-kart. So y'all shut the fuck up about me.
So here he called Diddy fake hard, said he was a fed, and said he got a deal to get out of jail. Now personally to me it doesn't seem like he was referring to the Diddy parties and all that other stuff, but who knows. However, someone who's had really strong claims about Diddy dating all the way back to 2005 is a lady by the name of Corinne Stephens. I'm not sure if it's Steffens or Stephens, so I think I'm gonna go with Steffens. I apologize if I'm wrong. Corinne Stephens used to be a video vixen, which Wikipedia defines as a woman who models and appears in hip-hop-oriented music videos. In 2005, she published her book Confessions of a Video Vixen, and it was in this book that she became one of the first people to ever accuse Diddy of anything kind of crazy. This book was really controversial because she was just talking about all her sexual experiences with tons of rappers.
There's even a Reddit post compilation of statements in this book where they compiled everything she said about different rappers' dick sizes. So that's pretty funny.
And what's interesting is that a rep from Diddy's team actually tried to get her to stop producing the book right after it came out. Now, I didn't want to go buy the book and read the entire thing, but I watched some people on TikTok read a few chapters, so I'm basically an expert. And based on what was said in the book, Diddy was pretty weary of her. According to her book, Corinne had hooked up with Diddy before, and then was hanging out with him and the rapper Exhibit. Apparently, she said Diddy took her and Exhibit to a gay club, and said that
Enemy
Exhibit should be
UAV
careful
inbound.
with her because she was the type of woman who would have you on tape with fingers in your booty. So it sounded like Diddy thought she was the type to rat on his behaviors. She eventually then attended a Diddy party months later with Exhibit. She said Diddy was shocked to see her there, and it seemed like he was worried Kareem was going to expose him for what was going on at his parties. That's not what she said verbatim, but that's kind of what I extrapolated from the book. Now, there's a bunch more in this book as well, and she even went on to mention 2 label execs she caught having sex. She then went on the Wendy Williams show to discuss the book, where Wendy asked about the label execs.
You walked in on record executives having gay sex, or one executive having gay sex with a man. You don't mention that person's name. Can we talk about what record label?
No, that'll give it away. That'll give it away. But
What letter does it start with?
Not even. That'll give it away.
Let's continue with the problems. There was a party in Miami, and you showed up with Exhibit, and it was Puffy was at the party, or it was his party.
His party.
And when he saw you come in, it was like he saw a ghost, and he immediately asked you why you were there. He thought that you were there to blow up his spot. He then pulled Exhibit aside and asked Exhibit to get you out of the party.
I mean, I feel like it would be the letter B because there's not too many labels that start with a B, and, you know, Bad Boy Records is Diddy's label. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, following everything that came out about Diddy, Karine has filled in the blanks in regards to her time around him. She said in an interview that his parties were like The Great Gatsby, men in tuxedos, topless women in angel wings, champagne and synchronized swimmers on the outside, with group sex in the bathrooms and pills being passed around on the inside. I also think it's important to note that Kareem did say she wasn't one of his victims, but she did see some things. There probably is a ton more info to speculate on inside of this book, but like I said, I didn't read it. So if you're interested in the tales of a video vixen from the early 2000s, feel free to check it out. And another person who I mentioned earlier, who has talked about Diddy a lot throughout their career, is Wendy Williams. After Cassie and Diddy had a split in 2015, which I covered in my previous video, Wendy Williams went on her show and talked about it, saying some interesting things about the situation. She was covering Diddy cheating on Cassie going to South Africa to avoid Diddy and to shoot a movie. But Wendy actually spoke on Diddy being able to pop up on Cassie whenever he wants to, which in retrospect is kind of scary to think about. And I can't show the clip because of copyright, but basically what Wendy was saying is that after Cassie went to South Africa, that it was sketchy for her because Diddy was so rich he could literally just buy a plane, fly over to South Africa, pay off the person at the front desk, and pop up on her whenever he wanted. She then talked about Diddy being spotted with his ex coming out of a sex store, and the way that Diddy was with women in general.
And one more thing, they said to me, Wendy, do you ever think Puffy will settle down? And I said, yeah, like most men who think they're really young, somewhere around 68 to 78 years old. When he needs help with his applesauce, yeah, he'll pick one and settle down, and that'll be that. But right now, no, I don't think he will. And I think that he's like leading this Playboy lifestyle where he's got these women in his life, like Cassie will be back.
And she was right, as Cassie did eventually go back, but after what we've learned, she may not have had much of a choice. I mean, the video of Diddy assaulting Cassie happened only a year after this interview. Then, a couple of years later, she interviewed Diddy on her show, and this clip has had people feeling strange, especially after the recent news.
As the mother of a now 16-year-old.
Who I met backstage,
He did?
He's a great young man.
Oh, thank you. You represent a lot.
People said things like, that was a threat, he's saying play nice. And the way that she hesitated, you know that she knew about it. In the 2019 episode, Wendy detailed an incident where a girl group that was signed to Diddy jumped her and hinted that Diddy may have a hand in it. And she's had a whole list of other things involving Diddy, like when he allegedly got her fired from her, I think it was Hot 97 back in the day. But these are the main incidents that Wendy has said things about Diddy. And people have theorized that she's known about him for years, which is why she's brought him up as much as she has. And lately, like I said, tons of other celebrity comments and clips have also been resurfacing in light of the Diddy allegations. One of those people is Khloe Kardashian, who talked about a crazy party experience she had at Diddy's in an old episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
So who was with you this weekend? A bunch of my friends. Diddy, Quincy, Justin Bieber. So far, French Montana. Do you even know half the people you're naming? No. She didn't go to bed. I haven't been to bed yet. You haven't? I want to be Clay when I grow up, Court. I got on a plane at 5:30 a.m. Go to this party. I think half the people there were butt naked. You would have loved it.
Ashton Kutcher, who partied with Diddy a bunch, was asked about it in his Hot Ones interview years ago, to which he seemed somewhat awkward and decided not to answer.
Diddy party stories, they're our favorite genre of anecdote, if you have one, yeah.
Wow, okay, I've got a lot I can't tell. So, I can't tell that one either. I mean, I'm like actually cycling through them.
For pretty obvious reasons, people have been looking at this clip sideways. And of course, there was the infamous Cat Williams interview on Club Shay Shay where he was airing everything out. This was actually from before the feds even raided Diddy and were publicly known to be investigating him, although a few lawsuits had already come out.
All of these big dick deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is. TG Jakes, any of them. All lies will be exposed. That's all. Now, I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times. 4 times. Just to protect my integrity and that virgin hole I was telling you about. Right. Because P. Diddy be wanting to party. And you gotta tell him no. You got to tell him no. I did. I did. See, I got the receipts for everything I'm telling you. That's why I can say them so freely.
Even Dave Chappelle did a skit back in the day talking about Diddy's show making the band, kind of joking about how weird Diddy was. There have also been a ton of other weird clips and comments that people have been looking at, like a young Justin Bieber looking very uncomfortable around Diddy, to Usher saying he saw some crazy things when he was living with Diddy at 13 years old. There's been countless accusations over the years, so I just covered the main ones that people are talking about, or the ones that had the most substance to them. Now, of course, everything I have covered so far is just people's comments infused with some speculation, but if you want to understand the formal allegations Diddy is facing in both lawsuits and his indictment, I suggest you check out this video I made where I broke down everything, because I know it can get confusing with all the conspiracies out there.